I sold my car. I put my life savings into it. I went to move back in with mum and dad. And at one point I was doing these really weird garage sales to try and raise money for my organisation. And then I'd Google rich people in Australia, and then I'd email them and ask them for money.
It took a while though. It was different for me going, as a young guy in TV, you're saying yes to everything, right? Like, I'll do that, I'll do that. Yeah. And it's only when you get to a certain point down the road and you go, wish I never did that, that was shit.
We talked about this, I think, in one of our other episodes where we were talking about the failure of startups. And it's rarely, everyone says it's funding. We couldn't make enough money or we couldn't make it work. And it rarely is, can't say never, it rarely is. It's usually, just like you said, the founder's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And they just stop, they just give up. They want to do something else.
So we're the only country in the world to lose a war to a flightless bird. And so I got the parliamentary records for that, and it is so funny. We were absolutely humiliated by emus. First of all, it is just good business. Even if you don't believe in climate science, all you need to do is talk to your insurance company and they're going to tell you they certainly do. The rising insurance costs, they're saying that, a lot of cities and businesses, buildings won't be insurable anymore. So it's something that businesses should be taking seriously, not just because of impending regulation, but also because they want to have a resilient business.
But essentially, you become a storyteller, right? That's how you're going to change the world. And I think you probably can change the world by telling stories. Yeah. I think that's probably the only way you can change the world, because humans love stories. Everybody loves stories, from children all the way to grandparents. Everyone loves a story. Look at how powerful religions come through storytelling.
This Could Be So Good is a show about what it really means to build a business. It's proudly brought to you by The Pillars, a private members club located in Sydney CBD for innovators to connect, and the award-winning Ben Buckler Whiskey, because some of the best conversations happen over good whiskey.
Natalie, so excited to have you on the show. We met last week, chatted a little bit about where you're at and how your life has led you to this book, which we're going to talk about. But some of the stories that you have enlightened me with little versions of, we're looking at exploring today. I just can't wait. I think what you've done with your life is so fascinating and so unusual. Larry's got no idea, which is even better. Well, a little bit of an idea. Let's get into it, Larry. Go on, throw any question at her.
So Steve called me and said, got this amazing woman for the podcast, Natalie Kyriacou. And he's like, okay, what does she do? And Steve goes, she's just got the most amazing stories. Amazing stories. I said, well, that'll do it. Do you know when you're meeting someone, when you're talking to someone for the first time, that you've got them hooked with your amazing stories?
I think often I have them disconcerted. It depends what I come out with. I just met you before and I started talking about bonobo clitorises and I don't know if you were disconcerted. So I think, most people, I'll just throw a lot of stories at them and see what lands.
Would you go early with the bonobo clitoris story just to see where it lands and see how that relationship's going to build? Is that a good foundation for our friendship?
It is. I think so, yeah.
She hit me with that first too.
Yeah.
It's really top of mind for me. Yeah.
I think we need to do it now, right? We can't start this podcast
It was the first chapter of the book and it just, it just blew my mind.
Tell us the story, Natalie.
Okay, so Charles Darwin, the theory of evolution, he sort of overlooked studying the female of species, and what happened was he based his theory with a lot of, I guess, inherent misogyny in it. So he used to call the female of species wives, and he would say they were less than men, and he didn't bother really looking into them. And so and Charles Darwin, a lot of his theories, they obviously now shape everything we know about life today. So when we talk about men and strength, and we talk about wolves and the male dominance and all that sort of thing, that's all well and good, but we haven't studied the females of any species. I think of all the studies that have ever been done on species, less than 7% are done on the female species, even now. So anyway, these amazing female scientists launched into the world and started studying the clitorises of animals. And they looked at the bonobo's clitoris. And the bonobo is a great ape that's really closely related to us and also looks very similar to the chimpanzee. And while the chimpanzee, their sort of communities are quite aggressive, well, not even quite aggressive, they're just violent, really, really violent. bonobos live in a really peaceful society, and that is because of the bulging clitoris of the bonobo. Basically, they have evolved these giant clitorises that waggle when they walk, and it's because the females rub them together as a form of bonding and social cohesion. And that, in some cases, allows them to overthrow any dominant males or anybody getting a bit too big for their boots. But in most cases, it's just used for friendship, and they have a really peaceful, egalitarian society as a result, which is vastly different to the male-led chimp societies. So this has led scientists to start looking at the different ways we can think about leadership. I wouldn't recommend just, doing this in like a HR, recommending to HR that they propose this in the workplace.
Why not?
I guess you could, but it's all about brandishing their clitoris for the sisterhood. That's what they do, and it works. And so then they started looking, they discovered that snakes have clitorises, even though men had studied snake researchers, majority of men, but it was women that found the clitoris of the snake. And
this is your question next. Yes. I don't think this is your question.
I'm like, do I keep talking?
Because men historically have struggled to find it anyway, right? Yeah. Is there the possibility that Charles Darwin saw the bulging clitorises and then just didn't know what to write? Just didn't know how to put that into words?
Or maybe he didn't think to look for it. Or who knows? No.
So what does this teach us?
So it's now helping us look at different leadership in a new way, and this is helpful for men and women. So we don't have to be dominant and aggressive to be great leaders or great entrepreneurs. We can be, in some cases you can rub your clitorises together, but you can be, a lot of the species they looked at, even like whales and orcas, it's all about passing down knowledge, building communities, strengthening bonds through friendship. So building trust, maintaining social cohesion. These are all the things that they were discovering when they looked at female-led societies. And of course, you still have female-led societies where the females are aggressive and dominant and all of that. But it's just helped open our eyes to a different sort of leadership style and moving away from, this is how wolves do it. So that's how humans should do it too. That means success. And so I think it's just challenging some of these ideas that we've built that were based on Darwin's theories, and his theories are wonderful, but he was biased because he was a man in Victorian era society. It was a society where women weren't allowed to vote. They weren't allowed to go to any of the great scientific institutions. They didn't have access to their own bank accounts. They were not allowed to fully participate in society. So his view was shaped by that. And so it's just, I think, a really powerful thing for us to be aware of today.
Okay, 3 minutes in, already you're my favourite guest of any podcast. I just want to put that out there straight.
So just before Larry gets carried away with the clitoris stories, as I feel we could spend the entire hour on this, give us a little bit of framing around what you did to discover all of this knowledge, because your knowledge around animals, your knowledge around unusual stories with animals, and there's a couple of others that I think we should touch on. How did that happen? That doesn't just happen. How did you gain this knowledge? How did you find this out?
Yeah, I worked in the field for a really long time. So, probably 12 years ago, I started a wildlife and environmental charity, and it was focused on education for kids. But we're up against so many barriers, and especially the environmental movement. I thought if we're going to make any real change to advance environmental conservation efforts, then we need to change whole systems, and I need to learn how to navigate corporate Australia. I need to navigate policy settings. I need to learn how to work better with grassroots communities, with NGOs. And so for most of my career, I've been trying to do that, working across various settings to try to push the dial forward, both for environmental outcomes, but also for young people and future generations. And over that time, I've just had the privilege of meeting with the most incredible people, scientists, conservationists, NGOs, policymakers who, like my meetings during the day, estranged. That it'll be somebody was telling me a few weeks ago how one of their vets was crying because they were running along the corridor and they dropped elephant semen, and that was a breeding elephant, and now they have to fly in this vet from Germany, and they were crying. So they were crying over spilt semen, elephant semen, and like that. So I have meetings like that.
That's unusual.
I like to collect stories particularly because when we talk about the environment, I can see people's eyes glazing over. I can see people disengaging from what is a really important topic. And so I want to find ways to be able to, and it's a divisive topic. So I want to find ways to be able to communicate how important this is by sharing stories that can resonate with anyone and everyone. So I just collect rants. Not everyone's going to love the clitoris story, but I've got others in my back pocket that I can share. And then we can look at those, and that teaches us more about our understanding of humanity, human culture, politics, economics.
Yep.
So, that's how I just collect them.
What's that old saying? No point crying over spilt elephant semen. Is that the saying?
that's the saying.
I think that's the saying.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that we talk to are starting up in business to make money, to make success. But from your perspective, it was to change the world, right?
Yeah, or everything
does that
was
make
naivety.
Was that hard?
I mean, it was hard. It was a very easy decision.
But hard to get traction.
Oh yeah, it was really hard. I sold my car. I put my life savings into it. I went to move back in with mum and dad, and at one point I was doing these really weird garage sales to try and raise money for my organisation. And then I'd Google rich people in Australia, and then I'd email them and ask them for money. And
How did that go?
Yeah, not well.
Got to be said, I'm doing the same for my startup now. It's important to know.
Yeah, dear
How's
sir,
that going for you? Not well?
To whom it may concern, do you like whiskey?
Yeah, I saw you on the rich list, and I was just wondering. So it was enormously hard, and it still is, all of it. There was, financial insecurity, but I was also privileged enough to always have my family to fall back on, in that, like, I was never going to become homeless. I could go and live with my mum and dad, or, a sister or something like that. I couldn't have any dignity, I guess. But yeah, all of it, it's been the emotional weight of issues that can be quite serious, and it can be quite dark, talking about some of the environmental challenges and also how they're impacting communities all over the world in quite severe ways. So there was that, and then there was just constantly getting dismissed for a really long time, because I was both a woman in the startup sector and then a woman talking about the environment and climate change, and so they weren't popular when I started. So
you were coming up against Darwin's theory in real life, right? Literally.
Yeah. So it was tough. I find it easier. I've learned to navigate it better now, and I love it. And I also know not everybody has that privilege to be able to, I had lots of jobs on the side, and one time I was cleaning kennels just to make money. So I was so driven. I was on a mission. There was no stopping me.
You still are. I mean, look at, you're for someone who's, as you said, you were just willing to do anything to make it work. You've then gone and thought a lot about it, because you went and had a corporate career, right, for a period of time.
Yeah.
Not because you wanted the financial stability, but because you wanted to understand how you could get the corporates to help you, and the only way to do that was to go and work with them.
Yeah.
How was that, from cleaning kennels and running an environment and selling your car to suddenly going working in, and you can mention them if you like, I'm not going to, but one of the Australia's, or one of the global consulting firms, it's like the biggest shift ever.
Yeah.
So tell me how that came about. Was it a conscious decision? I need to learn about the enemy, so I'm going to go and lie within them kind of thing? Was it that kind of?
It was a conscious decision. Yeah. So I was still running my charity, so I still had a lot of other things going on in the background, and I joined PwC, and I wanted to work in their social impact team. I ended up starting out as a management consultant there, and it was a really overall, it was a good experience. I got what I wanted out of it, and I think that I was able to contribute there as well. I set up an impact initiative at PwC where we gave free consulting advice to nonprofits. I worked a lot with sustainability in our sustainability team. I helped set up the environmental social governance team at PwC, and they knew me as a very passionate advocate for the environment. So they gave me quite a lot of free rein to be quite a bold voice at PwC. So I'm very grateful to them for that. It wasn't for me long term. There's other areas that I struggled with. I'd spent most of my career then working with nonprofits or working overseas and also just working in a more agile way. Big consulting firms, there's a whole different set of challenges. So after 4 years, I was.
You said something to me very interesting when you first told me that story.
What did I say?
You said to me, because I said, "How did you go?" Right, and you said, "I went pretty well." And I said, "Why do you think that was?" And you said, "Because I didn't care. I didn't care what they thought. I didn't care about anything. I went in there with my objectives and I just did it, and I didn't care what anybody thought."
Yeah, oh God, that was profound of me.
It was profound. But I think that's an interesting lesson.
I didn't care because I think people go into PwC and they want to make partner and they sort of get into this rat race and it's all like a bit of a dominance and you've got to cut other people down. I didn't want that and I didn't care about that and I didn't really care. I didn't care whether they got rid of me because I was on I had my mission. My identity was not tied to PwC. My identity was tied to, things like community and my family and the impact that I create on the world. So I just, I didn't get stuck so much in PwC and there was never a time where I thought, I'm really, my values aren't aligned here. I've always known my values and if they didn't align, then I would just say no. And so, there was a lot of freedom in I know not everybody experiences that and I probably sound really privileged, but for me, there was just a lot of freedom knowing that I was okay being me there and I didn't care if they didn't like that or want that.
It's not privileged, it's refreshing to hear.
Larry was like this with his career. We've talked about this before. Larry was very, you know your identity and you have done and said no to lots of things throughout your career that you could have easily done.
It took a while though. It was different for me going, as a young guy in TV, you're saying yes to everything, right? Like, I'll do that, I'll do that. Yeah. And it's only when you get to a certain point down the road and you go, wish I never did that, that was shit. And here's the list.
Yeah. And it's all recorded on camera. It's awesome.
But lately, as an older, wiser man, I was able to make those decisions and say no to things. And I found that very powerful along the way. Yeah. Do you remember the first goal that you kicked and how you've in your heart along this path to change the world and you had all these things that you wanted to do? Do you remember when the first thing fell into place and went, I got it, I did it? Be it bringing someone's attention to it, raising some money, changing the face of something, changing someone's understanding.
That's a good question. It's a really good question.
The app, I built an app, a mobile game app, and this is after I'd been living in Borneo for a little while and I came back to Australia and I was doing my master's degree and I had decided that I had a new mission and I wanted to build an app that would essentially allow kids to become virtual conservationists because I just saw all of these apps online like Angry Birds. Kids were becoming addicted to them. This is 12 years ago. Kids were addicted to these apps and I thought, what if there was an app where they could actually feel like they'll actually have an impact and they were learning and they were teaching other kids. And so I built this app that was sort of like The Sims, but kids could build their own world, clean up oil spills, rescue wildlife. But each species in the app represented a real life charity. So there was Miko, the orangutan in the app, and he was an orangutan that stole my underwear in Borneo, and he represented Borneo orangutan survival. And so kids could learn about Borneo orangutan
Sounds
survival.
Sounds like more of an adult game. Though.
I didn't mention that in the app. That was a side story. I go down rabbit holes sometimes.
We'll come back to the side story as well.
Anyway, so I built that app and apps were hard to build back then.
Did you know how to build apps? When you say that, I built an app.
So I had app developers and things, but I mean, I was a student with no money and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to run a bit. I knew nothing. I actually knew nothing. I just knew stuff about wildlife, basically. That was the extent of my knowledge. But I started connecting with charities and because I was just on such a mission, I learned as I went. I built a website. I ended up building a company around it and it just got bigger than I ever expected. And the app did really well. We had, I think, 100,000 people that used it.
That's wild.
Kids loved it. It was all over the world. I had, families in the US and their parents messaging me saying how much their kids are teaching them these weird things about animals and that they want to protect wildlife. And so that was the first thing where I felt like I'd done something that was really having an impact, and that nearly killed me. I was, it was years in the making, and I wasn't ready for how big of an undertaking it would be.
I talk to people all day, every day. That's my job. And I love your face when you're telling that story. Because, when you're looking at someone and you go, they've told this story 10,000 times, that is still such an important story to you.
Yeah. I really loved that app. And I loved that it was the reasons I did it. It was just very pure. Like it was, there was no, and also naive. There was no strategy behind it. It was just, no, I really, this is what I think the world needs right now. I want this to be for kids. I want this to be for, to help charities and to talk about wildlife. And so, it was, and then and because I think people knew that I was so passionate about it, they all supported me. So my dad and all of his friends from bowling, they all used to wear these bracelets they'd buy these bracelets as like little fundraisers that I would do. Like everybody was supporting me, a family and extended family, because obviously like the millionaires that I was emailing, they didn't want to support me because it was bad business. But I
mean, as a first little win, which I think was the question.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was.
It's more than impressive. It's incredible. And I think, when you see things like that go off, they're often because you did it for the reasons that you did it for, right? You didn't do it to make money. You didn't do it because you were into technology. You did it because you thought it was a way to open up what you thought was important to the world to people who might not have ever opened up to it otherwise, which you did. That's an insane first little goal. Yeah. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
And from there, and what happened to that, by the way?
I got utterly exhausted by it after a while. We had a very small team. Most of them were remote, had issues with the app developers and semi-legal battle there. And so after a few years of it being online, I was going my career had gone a little bit further, and I was focusing on different things. So I made the decision to take it offline because I just
How hard was that? Because you obviously the way, and as you just said, you can see when you tell that story, that was massively important to you.
Yeah, it was. But also then I started questioning the role of technology with kids, and I was thinking, okay, maybe I can take it offline and then add in a feature where we're encouraging kids to get outside more, because I didn't want to be addicting children to just something else. But it was really hard, and I felt like I don't know, it felt like a bit of a betrayal, and people think, and I worried what people would think, that they would think that I don't care about this issue anymore, because at that time also my career had expanded and grown a bit. So I didn't want to come across as self-serving or be self-serving. So it was really difficult.
That was a bit horrible time by the sounds of it. It sounds like you went through this whole...
going through it again right now. No.
Sorry to make you relive it.
What's our lesson there for people who are listening or watching who are starting up and just want insane growth and insane value adding and all of that? Is the lesson there to try and look ahead a year or two or three and see what could go wrong and be better prepared for that?
Yeah, I think we focus on speed, and I understand the need to get to market quickly, but not at a cost to yourself. You need to think a little bit about longevity of the organisation as well, or at least have the right support around you. I was a lone founder. So I wish now things like I had a co-founder or somebody that could just pick me up fill in the gaps when I just wasn't able to. I would just say think longevity, not just of the company, but of yourself, because I think I've heard this story a lot of people, just as they've hit that success mark, they're broken and they don't even want to look at that company anymore. They just want to completely disengage.
Steve, so it's such an important lesson, right? You would have heard that so many times, that story where we go, and all the wheels are turning and the fireworks are going off, and then you get to a point where it's like, I'm not ready for the next bit.
Well, we talked about this, I think, in one of our other episodes where we were talking about the failure of startups, and it's rarely everyone says it's funding. We couldn't make enough money or we couldn't make it work. And it rarely is, can't say never, it rarely is. It's usually, just like you said, the founder's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And they just stop. They just give up. They want to do something else. They're just over it.
Yeah.
Sometimes because they push themselves so hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes because they feel like they're doing it for self-serving or the wrong reason or not the reason they started it.
Yeah.
That's why most businesses fail. Nothing to do with funding. So it's not uncommon at all.
Yeah. I can
So
definitely see that.
looking back with what you know now, and we'll just talk specifically about the app for a sec, because I can see startup people really relating to that story. Would you not have done it in the first place?
Oh no, I'd do it all over again.
Right.
Yeah.
Even because it got to that point and you were like, that's it, I'm done. You still would have gone through the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
all
interesting.
Of it. Yeah. I learned.
What did you learn?
Everything.
What was the most important thing? Because if you learned, you would have learned a lot. What was the most one thing?
I learned how to navigate partnerships with international NGOs. I learned how to engage young people and adults and find different ways to talk about wildlife and the environment in ways that was accessible to broad audiences. I learned how to project manage. I learned how to build websites. And this was,
long time ago when it was hard.
It was different. It was harder then. I learned how to be a manager to people. I learned about, I was able to hone my communications. I learned about marketing, trying to market an app and get people talking about it. So, and I also just learned how to channel all of my, passion for the world into something that was tangible. So I learned a huge amount, fundraising, all of it.
I'm really curious, Steve, how important that is for a startup or a founder to go, I need to be able to do everything, because I know in what I'm doing, I don't know how to do that, but I know people who do. So there's no point me spending 3 years trying to learn how to do that when this guy or girl can sit next to me and go, right, this is what we do. Marketing, sales, relationships, building the business. How important is it for a founder to go, I need to learn how to do every part of my business?
There's two massive arguments on this. So I think it's not important for you to learn how to do everything, not at all. But if you're a founder, and most founders end up because they don't have a choice, because they can't afford to find those people to do those things for them. So I think, very much like Natalie, a lot of founders, they don't have the money. They don't know that there's other people out there. They don't know what the heck's going on, right? And they're just trying to make it work. I think when you are a little bit more experienced in life, and you do know more people, or you do perhaps have the budget to do things, then you don't need to. You should focus on the things you're absolutely good at. I think you need an understanding of everything, because otherwise you can't appreciate that person. And I think it's very, very important you appreciate what people do. And the only way you can appreciate is to have some level of understanding. But I mean, look at the amount you just listed of, I asked you for one and you look at all those things you learned. I mean, that's just wild.
Yeah.
So you're right. I mean, all those things you learn have prepared you for everything else. And then when you combine that with the other half of your life, and let's talk about that a little bit now, where you've lived overseas quite a few times, which is another completely different learning experience. Talk about some of those experiences. I mean, you've lived 25 lifetimes from what I can tell so far. But talk about some of your trips overseas and when you've lived overseas in unusual scenarios, because there's some amazing things that you would have learned that you can probably apply to being a founder now, writing a book now, all the things that you're doing now.
I mean, Borneo was one of the most memorable. So this is so I did my undergraduate degree in journalism, and then I was before I started my master's degree, I decided to go to Borneo because I wanted to write my first article on palm oil industry and its impact on orangutans. So I spent 3 months living in the jungle working at this orangutan rehabilitation centre, and it was the most incredible experience. I mean, I was trekking every day to monitor wild orangutan nests and populations. I was teaching juvenile orangutans how to climb trees because they'd been orphaned. So their homes had been destroyed and their mothers had often been killed. So they came to their centre so that we could sort of get them healthy again and release them into the wild. And bottle-fed baby orangutans. And it was, and that's how I ended up getting my underwear stolen by an orangutan, because I walked into my bedroom and there was this semi-wild or semi-rehabilitated orangutan sitting on my balcony holding my underwear. He'd pulled it off my little clothesline. And so I went outside and I tried to snatched my underwear back off him and he wouldn't give them back. So we had a little tug of war, and then he put them around his neck and ran back into the forest. I've got photos of him. I've got photos where he's just sitting there looking at me with my underwear around his neck.
You sure it wasn't one of the male workers dressed as an orangutan?
So Borneo, and it just, that really changed my perspective, because I went over there thinking, okay, everybody involved in the palm oil industry is bad. And so they're the bad guys. And I just was so wrong, because these are everybody that I met was so deeply connected to community, to family, to the environment, and their livelihoods were very much dependent on the forest in the same way that orangutans' lives were dependent on the forest. And it was trying to grapple with those two things. How do we share the environment?
It's interesting.
So,
I love that you recognize that. There's so many people who have a view on something and they only know the one half of the story, right? I think that's very common in our society. For you to actually go over there and discover that, look, there's still bad and good in both sides to some degree, but that everyone's just really trying to make things work. I mean, that would be, again, another huge learning and an eye-opener.
Yeah.
You ever lived overseas?
We lived in LA for about a year.
You probably learnt as much living there as you might have in Borneo.
There were underwear stealing orangutans there too, I can tell you. But it was I've got nothing to offer in the cultural section for my living in LA. But I think I went to Vegas every second week and ate burgers at Hooters. But
Did you like it there?
No, I went over there because that was I wanted to work there. I wanted to work in television there. That was my big thing. So, but that's a very horrible story compared to your stories. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about my business, and I came back a different person, but compared to the lessons that you would have learned. So how hard is it then to come back, and what changes in your mindset once you live a life like that? I guess you're just ticking off a list things that are no longer important when you get back to Australia.
Yeah. I came back. I was so annoying. I remember I came back and we'd have family dinners, and Dad would ask me if I wanted ice cream. And I was like, Dad, don't you know that palm oil is in ice cream? And, and I was just, and so it was actually, I started building my app after that trip because, I just, I was like, people aren't taught. This is the biggest issue in the world. There is, and we're not taught. Nobody's talking about it. We're talking about Angry Birds and Facebook or whatever was.
And you'd be talking to people and they go, "Nat, not that story again. Not the orangutan story again."
Yeah, and so I went through this evolution. I think a lot of people do. Where I started out my approach was basically just to get angry. I'm not an overly angry person.
Like the chimpanzees. Just unnecessarily violent.
Yes, yeah. I was outraged that people weren't seeing what I was seeing, because it was sort of this thing where once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you notice the, destruction of environments, or you or feel this sort of kinship with nature, then you can't unsee it. And so for people that hadn't yet seen it, I know I sound
got
like
angry.
I was mad at them. And I think that happens a lot when people join new movements, and they're like, even like CrossFit, and they're like, you have to do CrossFit. Yeah, I was like that, but about nature.
CrossFit.
So when you could,
it does. It becomes militant almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you join a new movement, like a little bit cultish. I was a bit like that for a while.
when you realised, maybe you couldn't change the global narrative on this. Yeah. Were you sad? Were you angry? Was it frustration? Was it try harder? Or was it next project, or what?
Do you know what? I don't think I've actually even accepted that to this day.
Good
that
answer.
I can't change
Great
the
answer.
global narrative. Yeah.
Great answer.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, I suppose, can only bang their head against a brick wall for so long.
No, just try. I like trying new things. So more recently, it's these weird stories, but I feel like they've resonated. I've explored different things. What hasn't worked for me is shaming people, and actually, it did for my dad a little bit. To be honest,
you shamed your dad.
with dad's an
for
environmentalist.
eating ice cream.
Yeah, but I'm his daughter, so it's a bit
Does
different.
he eat it in secret now, do you think?
We all still eat ice cream, but he's definitely more aware. But yeah, no, I always like trying new things, and then I speak to different communities and new people, and I learn something, and they challenge me, and so I start to think, okay, so how can I talk to a farmer about these issues in ways that, because farmers, the so connected to land, and they understand more about the land and the environment than I would, and so I've got a huge amount to learn from them. So how can we communicate? How can I learn from them to help communicate environmental issues in ways that don't exclude farmers or in ways that engage farmers? So that, I just always like experimenting.
What's the best way to get a message out there now, 2025? What's the best way?
It depends on the audience, I think. I'm still learning.
Because there are things that didn't exist when you started down this path.
Yeah. I'm hoping book, because for me the book, I can create so many different things out of that. I can use little bits and pieces for social media posts, or I can go and speak at events and talk about it, or it can, it can go out when I advise corporates. I can use stories from that. So there's so many different ways, but I do think, I still think there's a really big opportunity with corporate Australia. And the thing with corporate Australia is they have a tendency to take things and then make them really tedious. So they'll take something like nature or environment, which is fundamentally cool and interesting, and then they start talking about interdependencies and risk mitigation strategies for it. And
your whole voice changes when you say that. You know that?
And then everyone's bored by the environment. So my mission at the moment is to try to change the way corporates are communicating about the environment.
That's a fabulous sector for you too, because I've been a corporate MC for many, many years and introduced so many speakers to the stage, right? Yeah. And so many of them now, particularly if they want to talk about environment, you can see them all just glaze over.
Yeah.
So to come at that stage, that lectern with such heart and soul and fantastic stories is a great way to communicate that.
Yeah, I'm still learning, but I'll go on LinkedIn and I'll talk about why businesses need to care about whale poo, and make direct links to whale poo and their supply chain, or why Mars Incorporated, the purveyor of chocolates.
Yep.
Childhood obesity.
No shaming. That doesn't work, right?
Just lost another sponsor.
Just throw that in. Yeah.
Sorry.
Childhood obesity.
So their whole business is, all of their profits are entirely dependent on one tiny little insect called the midge. They're the insects that fly in your mouth when you...
Really?
Yeah.
How?
So the midge is the only pollinator of the cacao plant. It can't be pollinated any other
Did not
way.
know that. Did you know that?
So without the midge, there isn't chocolate.
I didn't know it needed pollinating.
Mars has invested close to $1 billion into nature because they're freaking out, because we are, the midge is in decline, but also the forests are in decline, and we're not able to produce as much cacao as we usually would be able to because of environmental challenges. So that's why chocolate prices are rising. The midge is threatened. So this is a big deal for Mars. They built their business on one tiny little midge.
Who knew midges were under? How do they count them? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, that's
it's just a nightmare. But essentially, you become a storyteller, right? That's how you're going to change the world. And I think you probably can change the world by telling stories. Yeah. I think that's probably the only way you can change the world, because humans love stories. Everybody loves stories, from children all the way to grandparents. Everyone loves a story. Look at how powerful religions come through storytelling. It's actually the easiest and only proven way to change the world. So I think you've hooked into something. Yeah. So tell me a bit more about the book. So the book is a collection of your stories, right?
Yeah, it's it's sort of. It's not a lot. I'm not in my book, so it's it explores the relationship between humanity and nature, and how nature has driven our culture, our society, our politics, our entire civilization, how it's led to empires falling and rising, but it's told through, I use a range of quirky stories as entry points to discuss broader themes. So I will discuss things like how scientists built an ejaculation helmet to help flightless parrots breed, to look more deeply into...
How's it going to help my whiskey business?
It's going straight to you, that question. That's another one for you. I feel you're more equipped for this.
So, yes, all right.
No, I want to know what you're going to say, your whiskey.
No, I just want to know how the ejaculating helmets are going to help my whiskey business as a lesson.
They're not ejaculating. Ejaculation. The helmets don't ejaculate.
No,
you wear them, right?
It's like a hat of condoms.
Right.
So the helmets don't ejaculate. The hope is that the flightless parrot will.
By wearing the helmet?
No, the vet wears the...
The vet wears it?
I should have started this story from this.
Okay.
I knew how to finish this story.
I wanted to start this podcast so I would learn lessons that I can apply directly to my business.
Yeah.
Okay. So how's a helmet full of condoms
Yeah.
going to help my business?
Okay. So if you've got, if you have,
It does sound like a fun drinking game.
They should make it for midges, I reckon.
well, you need parrots to have sex or different birds to be having sex. If birds stop having sex, then their populations diminish. And if their populations diminish, the ecosystem gets all out of whack. All it takes is sort of one domino and
why
all the
would
rest fall.
birds stopping
and so
having
birds,
sex?
there's a whole, this particular population of birds, they've been under threat for a while, mostly from humans, either hunting or introducing invasive species that kill them off. This bird is known as the Kakapo in New Zealand, and it's a really funny bird. It's the world's heaviest parrot and only flightless parrot. So it's sort of waddles around. But the males have a mating strategy where they waddle up a hill together and start bellowing into the dirt, and the women don't come.
What does bellowing mean?
They make
Like rolling?
no, like yelling, just
Oh,
shouting,
just shouting at the dirt.
shouting, yeah,
Where
shouting.
did they come up with that idea?
It's their mating call, and so the women don't come, which means that the men are left alone, and the Kakapo have started mating with rocks and on a few occasions human heads. And so it's become a thing. So scientists decided, these are from the Department of Conservation in New Zealand, they decided, okay, well, if he wants a human head he shall have. And so Kate McGuinness is a vet in New Zealand, and she built an ejaculation helmet, and she wanted so that if the parrot was humping her head, she could capture the semen. But then she thought, oh, he's a really heavy parrot, the world's heaviest, so I need something that can withstand the thrust of the world's heaviest parrot. So she went and got a rugby helmet and then remodeled it into an ejaculation helmet in her backyard. And then she ventured into the forest with the helmet on her head and waited for the parrot to come and hump her head. And he did, but she said she wasn't expecting two things happen. One is that it's the world's heaviest parrot, and they have sex for up like close to an hour. And so she said she was just sitting in the forest getting her head bonked by the world's heaviest parrot for hours on end.
I
told you this was going to be my favourite.
This is where you sell your whiskey. This is my favourite. She needs your whiskey.
And it didn't work either. So now
It didn't work. So she had a head humped for an hour.
Yeah, and it didn't work.
Where are all the female parrots?
These people, they're extraordinary. These are the people in the environmental sector, like the lengths they are going to save a species. She's trying to help this species population.
But where's this come? Why have they started doing this? And why do the female parrots not? What's happened?
Oh, because they only like to mate when they're well fed, but the fruit from their favorite tree only grows once every 4 years.
The women?
Yeah. It's very odd. But actually, I think next year the fruit on the rimu tree, which they eat, is going to grow. So it's mating season. It's going to be a big
But
year of mating.
now all the male birds got broken dicks because they've been humping rocks for 4 years.
Yeah. And low self-esteem probably too.
Low self-esteem.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Tell us another one.
I can't even get my head around that story.
But, you know what? I'm glad. If you were sitting there going, oh, I can see that happening.
I can see that,
Yeah. There's
What was your favourite story?
That has to be your favourite story. How can it not be?
Is there a story you were writing? Just people won't believe this.
yeah. A lot of them.
Yeah,
a lot
right.
of them were really unbelievable.
What's the most fanciful one? Or the most unbelievable one, if that wasn't it?
I mean, we probably know the Great Emu War.
I don't know it.
In Australia.
It's not about it humping someone's head, is it?
No, the Australia declared war against the emu and lost. So we're the only country in the world to lose a war to a flightless bird. And so I got the parliamentary records for that, and it is so funny. We were absolutely humiliated by emus, our military.
That's funny.
I use that.
You have to elaborate a little. It might be a long story, but I need to know something about this.
So it was 1932 and it was interwar period. So Western Australia was facing a lot of hardship and they'd given out sort of subsidies for farmers, but so the farmers in Western Australia were doing it really tough. A lot of them were veterans. Emus kept running through their farms and destroying farms. And there was one year in particular where there was just a lot more emus and they were rampaging through the farms. And so the farmers were putting a lot of pressure on the government, and it hit a bit of a boiling point. And so the Australian government declared war against the emu and mobilised troops to fight the emu. And the battle started, and they really got humiliated in the first few days. It was something like they had to stop after, I think it was 10 days, because the bullets to bird ratio were just out of this world. They were not hitting any. They couldn't hit them
too fast.
Yeah, and then so then they withdrew. The Australian military withdrew, and then they were embarrassingly reinstated a few days later. They thought they would try again, and again they failed. So it was declared a loss. And then even in the parliamentary records, somebody asked if the soldiers were going to receive a medal. And the newspaper, the headlines were just amazing. So I went through the archives, and it was all about.
We don't have this problem now. What happened? Did they just win and go, you know what? We don't want to run through the farms anymore. Proved our point. We're done. We are done.
Yeah, I think they just learnt to live with them. But yeah. So I used that to talk about survival of the fittest and explain how survival of the fittest works and why the emu was fitter than the Australian government, basically because they sort of group together and they can run in different directions, and the army was just constantly like, it was like a child trying to catch confetti in the wind. They could just never get to these emus. And then I used that to talk about the way that we have misunderstood survival of the fittest, and how it later came to be brandished by Hitler. So there's all of these things that we know about life on Earth and humans. It all has its roots in nature, and there's all these wonderful stories. So I liked finding those, and then wild. Finding quirky ways to talk about it. Yeah.
There's got to be a TV show in this somewhere.
Yeah, it's
called Coyote, isn't it?
Yeah. If I said to your dad, describe her in one word, what would he say?
Probably passionate. He wouldn't give one word. He'd give 10.
10?
Yeah, my dad is. He's proud of everything. No matter what my sister and I do, he's proud of it. He even did a LinkedIn post when my book came out, and it was just the most authentic, sweet thing. He's like, it might sound biased because I'm her dad, but this is the most riveting thing you'll ever read. And I was able to witness it as it unfolded. Like he was talking about me like I was Shakespeare. And it was, so I don't know. He'd use a lot of words, but I'd say passionate.
Would he say passionate? Would he go with persistent or stubborn?
Resilient?
Resilient.
All of those things. Yeah. Perhaps to my detriment sometimes.
What about for you? What's one of those words maybe you'd use?
I'm very curious.
It's right on the microphone in front of you as well. Look at that.
Yeah, that's
I'm very determined. I keep saying I'm on a mission. I'm very determined. I care, but you have to love something. Like for me to be this stupidly determined about something, when people would say, like, she just let it go. Yep. It's because I'm passionate about it. I think this is really important. I think this is important for future generations. I think in my mind, what's happening in the environment, it is one of the greatest human rights abuses that we've ever seen. People are already suffering from this. So I care deeply about that. So I will just keep trying to find different ways that resonate with people. And some of those have been successful. Others, maybe not so much.
Not so much.
Well, yeah.
I don't know, how would you describe it? I think I would describe you as, if in relation to our audience, which are a lot of entrepreneurs and so forth, total belief. That's how I would describe it. You have complete and utter total belief in what you're doing. Yeah. And because you have that, it doesn't matter if things don't work because your belief is so complete and so total, you're just going to do something else. It's not even a shall I. You don't even think about it. There's not even a moment where you consider, maybe I should just stop. No. You're just going to go, well, what's next?
Yeah. It's also just the sort of person I want to be in, the sort of life I want to live. I'm very much guided by that. Like I want to live a life where I feel like I'm I'm being true to myself, where I can have an impact, where I get to be curious all the time, where I get to meet wonderful people who are also curious and kind. So it's that, and where I feel connected to community. So it hasn't been exact. I've never sort of been someone that said, okay, I want to do this by this year. It's more, this is the person I want to be and this is the life I want to live. And I know it's always guided by, impact, but just following that has meant that I've got to have my dream career and feel like I can also contribute some, a little bit of good in the world. So I think it's worked out well. I mean, sometimes, I'm not great at capitalism, I'll be honest. So sometimes that part hasn't stuck as well, but for the most part, it's been good.
So essentially we'd have a business audience, founders, people starting up, going, what do I want this company to look like in a year or two or in 5? And I know from my perspective, I've always done charity work, always. So now people are calling, can we have a case of whiskey to auction off on the side?
Yeah.
Of course. But if you have the opportunity now to talk to maybe a newer audience, right, our audience for the first time potentially, and say to them from startup phase through to big business, what do they need to do to help you and people like you change the world? Because you want to be in their mind somewhere, right? It's probably not going to be front of mind for many startups, is it?
Yeah.
Not front of mind,
No.
but you want it on the map of things.
Yeah.
We want to have this environmental angle or this philanthropic side.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, it is just good business. Even if you don't believe in climate science, all you need to do is talk to your insurance company and they're going to tell you they certainly do. The rising insurance costs, they're saying that, a lot of cities and businesses, buildings won't be insurable anymore. So it's something that businesses should be taking seriously, not just because of impending regulation, but also because they want to have a resilient business. So there's that sort of risk element of it. But also it's quite easy to do when you, we talk about how it's hard to become a sustainable business. If from the ground up, if you're building a business that is conscious of, you want to have a supply chain that you can trace, have a clear and transparent view of your supply chain, or if you want to hire in a way where you're hire in a way that's values led, or if you want to have a business that doesn't have huge amounts of deforestation in your supply chain or operations that are renewable. These are all things that are good for your business. It's lower cost, especially long term. You're building teams that are happier and healthier and they're more invested in the business. Normally businesses that are genuinely sustainable, they'll have more people wanting to work for them because they want to know that the organization they're working for is doing good. So I just think that you sort of start off making it a habit of trying to do little good things, and sometimes they spiral a little bit, like was the case with me, and they become a life where you're doing lots of good things.
Yeah.
It's just
it's amazing. It's amazing stuff. Steve, where would you like to see that as an investor? Where would you like to see that component on a pitch deck? How important is it now these days?
It's really important. And I've seen some amazing ones. Last year, maybe it was the year before, I met these two brothers. They were starting a bank. Now, that's like the worst idea if you would think about it from an environmental point of view. It's the most capitalist thing you can do. But they weren't starting a bank to start a bank. They were starting a bank because they knew by starting a bank, they'd make a lot of money. And every dollar that they make goes into the saving the ocean because that was their passion. The bank was irrelevant. It was completely irrelevant. They just saw the bank as a way to make consistently large amounts of money that could then be invested in their passion, which was saving the ocean. So you're seeing a lot more founders at that younger age starting businesses that you would never normally associate with the environment, like a bank, purely to save the environment. So it just depends how you frame it.
And the investor community interested in that?
They loved it.
Loved it.
Loved it.
Because everyone wants to have that, right?
But it ticks all the boxes. Like you said, people want to work there and people are increasingly looking for purpose-led businesses to work for. There's purpose-led investment, but there's also profits in there. There's something for everyone. They're ticking everybody's boxing. So they're bringing together the entire world rather than just pockets of communities fighting against others. Quite clever.
It also it completely fills your cup to work and feel like you're making a positive difference. Just from a selfish perspective, it is incredibly fulfilling and addictive, and you meet so many wonderful people, inspiring people. So I think if I was solely driven by profit, I would have been robbed of the opportunity of meeting some of the most incredible people I've ever met.
100%.
Yeah.
Tell me, what's your book called?
Nature's Last Dance.
And is it out now?
August 26th. So it's available for pre-order now.
Amazing. Well, we will I've got a copy. I have actually started reading it. You gave me a sort of downloadable copy, so I've got it on thousands of sheets of A4. It's quite long. It's longer than I thought when I pressed print.
It's
ran out of paper twice, but I have started reading it.
There goes the environment. Nice try.
Yeah, great one. That's all recyclable.
That's 4 trees at the midges we're going to eat.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
Chocolate's gone now.
So I'm looking forward to reading it, but I did start reading it. But yeah, look, I hope it goes well. I think it's going to be a hoot. I can't wait to read it. Thank you so much for coming on. I mean, the stories, but more so just that one true belief and passion. It's beautiful to see, and it's beautiful to see you describe it in such an authentic way.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So lovely to meet you, Nat.
You too.